This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9.
I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
ZT, does anybody need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? ZT. My name is Carolyn. Your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. And stations with proper emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Are directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics: astronomy, charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And please remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, or where and when you can look through a telescope, the National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, what can you see in the sky tonight? A featured constellation or object or topic, recent astronomical discoveries, space exploration and space history, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical questions and answers, and the 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in, but let's start first with low power and short time check-ins. Please come with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from this evening.
Tank of Light, Tony, low power portable in the kitchen, which is in East Dallas.
Delta 5 India, Zulu Foxtrot. David Mesquite, short time.
News. November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Allen, short time.
Alright, the net recognizes NT5TM, Tony, and KD5IZF, Dave, and N5WOI, William. Any other or short-time check-ins? Right then, we'll move on to general check-ins again. Please come to call sign name and where you're transmitting from. So, general check-ins, please come now.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Yes. November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving.
Echo Bravo, Bravo. David in Dallas.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo 5, Alpha, November, Papa, Allen, and Dallas. Papa, Mike, and Richardson.
So, X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
Kilo Golf 5, Vector, Julia, Papa, Robert, and Richardson. Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta, Whiskey, John, and Kato.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
Yeah, I picked these up. There was one I didn't quite get the call, but WB50, that recognizes WB50ZL, Brenda, N5BB, Bill, W5EBB, David, K5ZBL, Bill, K5ANP, Allen, KG5P, Mike, K5KTX, and the next one I got KG5, and I missed the next letter, and JP. Could you come again with your call, please?
VJP, Robert, and Richardson.
Robert. All right, I missed the Victor and K5JDW, John, and K5ICX, Tom. Okay, any other general check-ins?
8, Alpha Mike Hotel, Aaron in Louisville.
Kilo 5.
Recognizes K8AMH. Aaron, welcome to the net. And, all right, let's move on to Echolink. If you have anybody wishing to check in by Echolink, please come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey J, near Weatherford.
Right, the net recognizes KG5BZWJ, and by text, KG5 Zulu Charlie Tango, David in Frisco. So welcome to the net. And obviously no more Echolink check-ins. Anybody, if any, by any mode, like to check in, please come now.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Golf, Quebec, Andre in Dallas.
Kilo 5. Juliet Delta Whiskey, recheck.
Okay, the net recognizes KG5ZGQ Andre and K5JDW. Go with your recheck, please.
Carolyn, just wanted to verify the call sign. It was Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, K5JDW, clear.
Okay, I'm not to say that. Okay, sorry about that. All right, we'll be having further rounds of check-ins as we go. But first of all, do we have any general announcements from anybody? Please come now.
Number Tango 5, Tango Mike.
KTX.
Right, NT5KM, Tony, go ahead with your announcements. KH50ZT.
Carolyn, I do have all my announcements posted at W5FC.org, and I'd really like to encourage folks to check that website out because I'll be very brief here, and there is a lot of stuff coming up. This is June, which is a very big month in ham radio. Have another net coming up tonight at 10:30 p.m. is the Afterglow Movie discussion, and we'll be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, which many members went to go see on a field trip this weekend, or maybe last weekend, I forget which. Sorry. But Solo, a Star Wars story is our Afterglow Movie discussion tonight. Then tomorrow at 7 p.m., we have the meeting on the air. This on-the-air meeting is open to every club member and any guest who'd like to join us. The only requirement is we hope you'll be willing to share what's been going on in your ham world. That's tomorrow right here at 7. Most importantly, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club monthly meeting for June is coming up this coming Tuesday at the Dallas Medical Center. We're on the northeast corner of Webb Chapel and LBJ, at the third floor community room in the main hospital building. Parking is free, and the meeting is at 7 p.m. The board meeting is at 6, of course, if you want to attend that, but the general meeting is at 7. And this is a very important month. We have HamCon coming up next weekend, and we need volunteers to help staff the club table. And we have Field Day coming up later this month, and of course, we all know just how big Field Day is. So I hope you'll join us on the air for the Afterglow Movie discussion for the meeting on the air tomorrow. And I hope you'll join us in person for the club meeting this Tuesday because we sure have a lot to talk about. This is NT5TM, reminding you also that all these announcements are available at W5FC.org.
All Tony, or?
Actually, that was it. The Afterglow meeting on the air and big club meeting coming up this Tuesday where we talk about Field Day, NT5TM.
Okay, thank you for that. And, Kelly, go ahead with yours.
This is K5KTX, and I brought this announcement in the previous net on TechNet, but I'll go ahead and do it here because it affects this net. Next weekend, I'll be making my first trip to California. I'm going to be in Pasadena, California, which is the home of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and Caltech and the Big Bang Theory. And no, it won't be Dr. Sheldon Cooper or Dr. Leonard Hofstadter on the air, but next Saturday, June the 9th, during this net, Skynet, I will be live talking to Dr. Steve Towns, who is the Chief Technologist of the Interplanetary Network Directorate from the JPL. So barring any Echolink technical issues, I will be interviewing Dr. Towns, whose call sign is WB4ILW, about his work with the Deep Space Network and about the history of the JPL Amateur Radio Club, where he is currently the president. So be sure to tune in right here on this repeater next Saturday night, June the 9th, at 9 o'clock p.m. Be there and be square. Dr. Towns is like I said, is the Chief Technologist of the Interplanetary Network Directorate at JPL. And during his career at JPL, he's been the manager of the Communication Technologies and Standards Program Office, Deputy Manager of the Systems Concepts, Integration and Planning Office, Deputy Project Manager of the Mars Laser Communication Demonstration. Hopefully he will talk about that. That sounds kind of cool. Manager of the Communication Systems and Research Section, and an analyst for various projects related to the Deep Space Network. He is a principal engineer, and he has worked at the MITRE Corporation in Bedford, Massachusetts, in adaptive signal processing for communications and radar at Stanford Communications in Mountain View, California, as an analyst for GPS and digital communication systems. He has degrees in electrical engineering from North Carolina State University, Stanford University, and Vanderbilt University, respectively. So this should be a lot of fun. And again, this is next Saturday night during Skynet at 9 o'clock p.m. With Dr. Steve Towns. And that's all I've got for right now. This is K5KTX.
Thank you for that, Kelly. Does anyone have any questions? I would also like to mention the AMSAT, the Radio Amateur Satellite Group, which has www.amsatnet.com. And this net originates in Houston. And locally, we have the Dallas AMSAT net for this area every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater at 147.14 megahertz with the PL tonal 110.9 positive offset. Of course, we have our usual DARC nets. On Monday this week, it'll be the Ham Fixins net. On Wednesdays, we have a Veterans net. Of course, on Saturdays, we have the TechNet at 7, Skynet at 9, and at 10:30, the Afterglow net. And every night at 6:30 p.m., we have the National Traffic System training net, and everybody's welcome to check into any or all of these nets. And of course, I mentioned the Afterglow net, so Tom, would you like to give us information on that? Case 50ZT.
I'll be happy to. This is KE5ICX. This we have for Solo, the Star Wars story. We need more coax, shouted young Han Solo. We got to get this right, shouted young Han Solo. Friends with young Indiana Jones. No, stated Kira, Han's girlfriend. It's called coaxium. One is used for your crummy ham radio, and the other powers starships. Get it right, you nerve herder. It wasn't a good day for Han Solo. He tried best as he could to make contacts on 40, but no one would answer. The stupid Empire was spamming the bands with numbers transmissions. 1, 2, 3, no, 4, 5, 6, yes, 7, 8, 9, Disney. It was just a waste of time in the scheme of things. It was time to jump to hyperspace. Solo heard there was a Bond supervillain who might pierce through the interference. Join us for the Afterglow Movie Net. Even if you did not see it, you can go and talk about Han Solo. But remember, there will be spoilers everywhere, even somewhere. Never mind. Anyway, it's 10:30 p.m. this evening. Come and join us. KE5IC, expect that.
Thank you for that, Tom. All right, this time, do we have anybody else wishing to check in? Please come now.
Hi, 6LZQ.
Hi, 6LZQ. Good evening, and did you have anything for the net?
I'm all ears, because I have nothing to contribute tonight. Back to net, KI6LZQ here.
Thank you, and all right, we'll move on to the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, or where and when you can look through a telescope. Do we have anybody that can give the information on that tonight?
KPX.
Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
This is K5KTX. The Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas holds monthly meetings, which are on the fourth Friday of every month, except November, when they're on the third Friday due to Thanksgiving, and we usually don't have a meeting in December. The meetings are held at the University of Texas at Dallas campus in Richardson. The meeting begins at 7:30 p.m. in the Science Center building, which is SLC, Sierra Lima Charlie, on the campus map. The best place to park is in Lot H, where we've been given special permission to park in orange, gold, or green spaces between 6:30 and 10:30 p.m. You can park anywhere else as long as you choose a green painted space. Otherwise, you risk getting a ticket. The meeting includes programs presented by members or guest speakers and a slideshow of the current constellation of the month. The next meeting that's coming up, the fourth Friday, will be June the 22nd. And again, the meeting begins at 7:30 p.m. They are free and open to the public. You do not have to be a member in order to participate. Our speaker for the month of June, excited about this, is going to be Pranvera Haisini. She is a very young lady, just turned 23, who is the director and founder of the Astronomy Outreach of Kosovo. So she's in the States for a few months. She was here last year as well, which is where I got to meet her for the very first time. And she is grew up in a very war-torn country of Kosovo, and they do not have really much of anything in the way of science, much less astronomy. And at this point, due to the help of many, many people, she's been able to get telescopes and she has a very large team of folks that go around Kosovo and do outreach events with astronomy, and it's been a huge success. And they're actually in the process of building an observatory there in Kosovo with a donated telescope from Celestron. And so some very exciting things. She's going to be our speaker. I've heard her speak several times, and very inspirational. And I'm really hoping everybody will try to get there and fill up the auditorium there at the University of Texas at Dallas. To the meeting that begins at 7:30 p.m. This month, we will also have a beginner astronomy class, which begins at 7 o'clock p.m. And the topic this month is shoestring astronomy, homemade astronomical instruments and accessories. So those of you who like to make your own stuff, that should be a good session for you. Astronomical Society also hosts observing parties every Saturday night beginning at sunset, and each week is at a different location for observing. So make sure that you go to texasastro.org, click on the calendar tab up at the top, and you can get all the details, including maps to the different locations. Parties are also free and open to the public and very family friendly and a lot of fun. And if you are looking to purchase your own telescope, this is a great place to look through all different types of telescopes and get all the information in order to make a good, educated decision. So tonight, the first Saturday is always at Spring Park in Garland, and it was a go. It looks like it's a very nice night outside, albeit just a little bit warm, and also with probably some mosquitoes in action, but there's definitely time to still get out there since it really just now got dark, so they'll probably be out there for a little while. And so it's time to get out at Spring Park, which is off of Jupiter Road in Garland. Saturday is at Frisco Commons Park in Frisco. Third Saturday is at J.W. Williams Park in Cedar Hill. And fourth Saturday is the Stars on the Rock at Lakeshore Park in Rockwall. And again, these are a lot of fun, and definitely try to get out to one close to you. In addition to those 4 events each month, we have a number of other events that go on. And so again, go to texasastro.org. Click on the calendar, and you can see all of our events that are available. And that's all I've got. This is K5KTX.
Thank you for that, Kelly. Does anyone have any questions? This is KC50ZT, and we'll move on to the National Space Society, N5BB. Would you like to take that, please?
Carolyn, this is N5BB. I don't have a lot of information this week. One comment is the National Space Society of North Texas webpage and Facebook pages are way out of date. There's just been some change in control, and the new people haven't gotten it all straightened out yet. So if you look at it and see things that are a year old, don't get too worried. There's still events happening. It's just, unfortunately, they're being communicated via email and the meetings not on the website or the Facebook page. So I have no real news other than the next local meeting of the National Space Society will be at 3:30 p.m. A week from tomorrow. So it'll be on Sunday, June the 10th. That's the end of HamCom weekend. Sunday, June the 10th, 3:30 p.m. at the Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving, across the street from Irving Mall on Highway 183. The only other event coming up for National Space Society locally is going to be Asteroid Day, which will be on Saturday, June the 30th It's a week after Field Day, Saturday, June the 30th, at the Perot Museum in downtown Dallas. If anybody has any questions, they can contact me, n5bb@arrl.net. This is N5BB. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bill. And does anyone have any questions? We're going to move on to our topic for tonight. I found it fascinating, vanishing sunspots. And as you know, right now we're at the minimum. Sunspots are becoming scarce, very scarce. So far in 2018, the sun has been blank almost 60% of the time, with whole weeks going by without sunspots. Of course, the fact that sunspots are vanishing comes as no surprise. Forecasters have been saying for years that this would happen as the current solar cycle, if this is solar cycle number 24, as it comes to an end. But the surprise is how fast. Solar cycle 24 is declining more quickly than forecast stated NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center on April 26th. And there is a plot that shows the observed sunspot numbers in blue versus the official forecast in red. The smooth predicted sunspot number for April-May 2018 is about 15, says NOAA. However, the actual monthly values have been lower. An official forecast of the solar cycle come from NOAA's Solar Cycle Prediction Panel. That's a group of experts from NOAA, NASA, the Air Force, universities, and other research organizations. They have been convening at intervals since 1989 to predict the timing and intensity of the next solar max. The problem is no one really knows how to predict the solar cycle. The most recent iteration of the panel in 2006 to 2008 compared 54 different methods, ranging from extrapolations of historical data to cutting-edge supercomputer models of the sun's magnetic dynamo. None fully describes what is happening now. It is important to note that solar minimum is a normal part of the sunspot cycle. Sunspots have been disappearing, or nearly so, every 11 years since 1843, when German astronomer Samuel Heinrich Schwabe discovered this periodic nature of solar activity. And sometimes they go away for decades, as happened during the Maunder minimum in the 17th century. We've seen it all before, or have we? I also have a chart of 400 years of sunspot observations. Researchers are keeping a wary eye on the sun now because of what happened the last time sunspots disappeared. That was in the solar minimum of 2008 to 2009. It was unusually deep. The sun set space-age records for low sunspot numbers, a weak solar wind, and depressed solar irradiance. When the sun finally woke up a few years later, It seemed to have a solar minimum hangover. The bounce-back solar max of 2012 to 2015 was the weakest solar maximum of the space age. This prompted some to wonder if solar activity is entering a phase of sustained quiet. The faster-than-expected decline of the sunspot cycle now may support that idea. Newcomers to the field are often surprised to learn that a lot happens during solar minimums. One thing, the sun dims, albeit slightly. NASA recently launched a new sensor, that's TSIS-1, to the International Space Station to monitor this effect. With less extreme UV radiation coming from the sun, Earth's upper atmosphere cools and shrinks, and this allows space junk to accumulate in low Earth orbit. And the most important change, however, could be the increase in cosmic rays. Flagging solar wind pressure during the solar minimum allows cosmic rays from deep space to penetrate the inner solar system. Right now, in fact, space weather balloons and NASA spacecraft are measuring an uptick in radiation due to this effect. And cosmic rays may alter the chemistry of Earth's upper atmosphere, trigger lightning and seed clouds. So air travelers are affected too. It's well known that cosmic rays penetrate airplanes. Passengers on long commercial flights receive doses similar to dental x-rays during a single trip, while pilots have been classified as occupational radiation workers by the International Commission on Radiological Protection. Ongoing measurements for spaceweather.com, which is a very good site for monitor the sun. And another site, Earth to Sky Canvas, shows that dose rates at cruising altitudes of 35,000 feet are currently 40 times greater than on the ground below. And this is values which could increase as the solar cycle wanes. Of course, as amateur radio operators, we can see the effect of the solar cycle. If anybody has been on HF lately, especially 40 meters is where I've noticed it the most, but mainly that's where I am most of the time. But it goes very long, or some days are just almost dead. And compared to when we have the solar maximums. And so we have an interest in hoping the sunspots come back pretty soon, especially if you're in DX and contesting. We don't know for sure how long it will take for the sunspots to come back. Solar minimum may just be getting started. We hope not, but we don't know. So it's something to keep an eye on in the coming weeks and months. hopefully not years. But does anyone have any questions?
EBB.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who should I contact about getting a refund on my telescope solar filter, because I haven't been able to see much of anything except a bright orange circle. W5EBB.
Oh, I'd hold on to it. You'll need it in a few years. Hopefully sooner than that. Right, before we move on, do we have anybody else wishing to check in?
This is Golf 5, Foxtrot Papa at Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot for November.
You were breaking up there. I got Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot something November, and didn't get a name or anything. Can you repeat, please? Anybody else copy him? Hey, I tell you, we'll move on to the next section, and then maybe you can improve your position or power, and we'll try again. But we'll move on. Tom, would you like to cover what you can see in the sky?
This is KE5ICX, and this segment is what you can see in the sky over the next couple of weeks, as well as tonight. This comes from earthsky.org/tonight, so you can find all this cool information there as well. And they do publish going forward, so it's just not one day, but several days in advance. So this is what they have. I did put a link in for the South Pre-Dawn or Dawn Sky. You can link there, and you can take a look at the picture of Mars and the moon. That's what we have. Before daybreak on June 1st through the 3rd, watch the moon near Mars and Saturn, because the moon moves eastward in front of the constellations of the zodiac at the rate of about a half a degree, or 1 moon diameter per hour, about 13 degrees per day. Look for the moon to change its position from day to day. It'll be closest to the Saturn on the morning of June 1st, approximately between Saturn and Mars on June 2nd, and closest to Mars on June 3rd. Believe it or not, that's it for this week. I couldn't believe it. It's the shortest earthsky.org entry I've seen. I think the guy is on vacation. So, this is what we got from the U.S. Naval Observatory, usno.navy.mil. What sky this week is where you want to go. They say the following: the moon wanes from the full phase this week, scudding along the southern horizon as she passes through her gibbous phases. Last quarter occurs on June 6th at 2:32 Eastern Time. Luna passes through the stars of Sagittarius early this week and then sets sail across the dim water signs of the early autumnal sky. Look for the moon about 3 degrees east of the golden glimmer of Saturn in the early morning of June 1st. Luna's glow washes out the faint stars of the late spring sky through the weekend, but by the close of the week, she rises late enough to enable you to get a couple of hours of viewing to enjoy the rising stars of summer. 11 o'clock p.m., you'll find the bright springtime star Arcturus crossing the meridian, and in the east, you'll see the 3 bright stars of the summer triangle rising above the eastern horizon haze. The brightest of these is Vega, which stands highest above the horizon in the northeast. Vega is the second brightest star in the northern sky after Arcturus, and is the first star other than the Sun to be photographed way back in 1850. It also is the first star to have its spectrum photographed. That was in 1872, and it's probably been the most extensively studied star after Old Sol. It was long used as a standard candle to set the logarithmic magnitude scale, which used Vega as a benchmark to designate zero magnitude across all the visible wavelengths of light. More recent observations show that the star is slightly variable, and improvements in both space and ground-based instrumentation have revealed that Vega is not quite the standard star it was once thought to be. Observations made by our first orbiting infrared satellite in 1983 revealed a large disk of dust surrounding the star, and high-precision ground-based interferometers have detected its exceptionally high rotation speed of nearly 240 kilometers per second. This results in Vega showing a pronounced equatorial bulge that's some 20% greater than its polar diameter. At 25 light-years distance, Vega is one of the closest stars in the solar system, to the solar system, and was once the first to have its distance measured by its annual parallax. It is the brightest star in the small constellation of Lyra the Harp, leading to small parallelograms of third-magnitude stars that make up the constellation. Two favorite targets of amateur astronomers may be found in Lyra. The easiest of these to spot from urban areas is the quadruple star system of Epsilon Lyrae, properly known as the double-double. Harder to spot from suburban skies is Messier 57, the Ring Nebula, a glowing cloud of tenuous gas illuminated by a very hot central star. On to the planets. Venus continues to keep a pace with the Sun in the evening twilight, relentlessly moving eastward along the ecliptic. This week she closes in on the twin stars of Gemini, Castor, and Pollux, and sets shortly thereafter at 11 p.m. Next week, she will form a straight line with the twin stars as she moves into the faint constellation of Cancer the Crab. Jupiter now dominates the evening hours, appearing in the southeast during the fading of evening twilight and arcing across the southern horizon during the course of the night. You should be able to start viewing him with a telescope as soon as he appears, and you'll have lots of times to enjoy the view until the wee hours of the morning. Should have a fine view of the planet's famed red spot on the evenings of June 1st and 3rd, and on the evening of May 30th, you can watch his innermost large moon, Io, drag its shadow across the planet's disk between 11:07 and 1:17 Eastern Daylight. Well, it already happened. Saturn now rises about 10 p.m., appearing low in the southeast along the stars of the Teapot asterism of Sagittarius. The ring planet transits the meridian at around 2:30 a.m., which will be the best time to view him this week. Saturn will reach opposition in another month, when he'll be visible in the sky all night long. And then finally, Mars has entered the obscure constellation of Capricornus, where he'll spend much of the coming opposition season. His headlong rush to the east is slowing as he approaches the first stationary point in his path, which will occur on June 28th. This disk is rapidly growing as Earth catches up to the more distant planet Mars. The best time to view him is still during the morning twilight hours, but the views in a modest telescope should be rewarding. That's it from what you can see in the sky over the next couple of weeks. Kind of a short report this evening, but I think they want to go on vacation. Back to you, Ms. Carolyn. This is KE5ICS.
Thank you for that, Tom. All right, before we move on to the constellation with that station, KG5F blank N, would you try again, please, phonetically?
Hey, Miss Carolyn, this is Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot Papa November. The name's Guy, Golf Uniform Yankee.
to the net, and feel free to check in anytime. Do we have anybody else wishing to check in?
This is Kilo Golf 5, Echo India Uniform, David, Mobile, Wiley, Texas.
And the net also recognizes David, KG5EIU. All right, we'll be having some more rounds for check-ins, but I want to move on to the constellation tonight. Corvus the Crow. Corvus is located below Virgo, and its name means crow or raven in Latin. In mythology, it represents Apollo's sacred bird. Corvus doesn't contain many bright stars and deep sky objects, but it's home to a very famous pair of interacting galaxies. And the antenna galaxies, they show a likely future of the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxy when they collide. Corvus is the 70th constellation in sky. It only has one star with known planets, but we'll look at some of the stars first. The brightest stars in Corvus form an asterism. They're made up of delta, gamma, epsilon, and beta. And this asterism is known as the sail, or for some reason, Spicus Spinker. It must be some kind of a sail, I don't know. But anyway, the stars gamma and delta point the way to Spica in Virgo. And gamma is the brightest star at magnitude 2.6, and I think it's a binary star. It has a traditional name, Gienah, G-I-E-N-A-H. It comes from the Arabic for the right wing of the crow. And then the second brightest star is Beta, yellow-white G-type, bright giant, and its magnitude varies slightly between 2.6 and 2.66. Then we go to Delta, a Class A star, magnitude 3.1. It has a traditional name, Algorab, which is simply from the Arabic, which means the crow. And then if we look at Epsilon, the Class K star, magnitude 3.02, and its traditional name, again Arabic, it's Minkar, M-I-N-K-A-R, which means the nostril of the crow. Then we have Alpha Corvi. Again, they didn't use Alpha for the brightest star. This is the fifth brightest star. A Class F dwarf at magnitude 4.02. It's the third faintest star with the Alpha designation in the sky. It is only brighter than Alpha Craterus. It's an Alpha Coronis Australis in the southern hemisphere. We have Eta Corvi, the sixth brightest star, a main sequence star at Class F dwarf at magnitude 4.3. Now this star is similar to Vega, just a lot dimmer. but it has a debris disk in its orbit. In fact, it has two. The star emits an excess of infrared radiation, a lot more than what is usually observed in an object belonging to this class of stars. Moving on to deep sky objects, one of the most interesting is the antenna galaxies. This is NGC 4038 and 4039. They're magnitude 11.11, but they are a well-known pair of interacting galaxies. First discovered by Sir William Herschel as far back as 1785. Galactic collision is in the starburst stage. The rate of star-forming activity in the region is exceptionally high, as the photo would show. The antenna are sometimes also known as the ringtail for some reason. I guess you could imagine that. They belong to a whole group of galaxies, the NGC 4038 group, that consists of between 13 and 27 members located in the constellations Corvus and Crater the Cup. The colliding galaxies were named the antenna because her shape resembles not a ham antenna, it resembles an insect's antenna. They have two long tails of gas, dust, and stars ejected from them as a result of the interaction. And they're worth watching. Two supernovae have been observed in recent years. 2004 and 2007. Were separate galaxies about 1.2 billion years ago. They think that 2038 was a barred spiral, and 2039 a spiral galaxy. I think that's the wrong NGC numbers. I think this supposed to be 40, 38, and 39. Anyway, though, they approached each other about 900 million years ago and actually passed through each other. And they started ejecting stars some 300 million years ago, and now the streams of stars have grown so large that they appear as the antenna, an extension of the colliding pair. The nuclei of the two galaxies are expected to merge into a single core within the next 400 million years and will probably settle into the form of an elliptical galaxy. And we have another interesting galaxy, NGC 4027. And this is a barred spiral galaxy at magnitude 11.7. This galaxy is a peculiar one. And in a photo you can see that one of its spiral arms extends further outwards than the other. Again, possibly as a result of a past collision with another galaxy. And it's a member of the same group of galaxies as the antenna. In fact, it's located less than a degree southwest of the antenna galaxies. Finally, besides the galaxies, we have NGC 4361. That's a large planetary nebula located in the center of the constellation, but its shape is similar to that of a dim elliptical galaxy. But if you have a large enough scope, you might try to see if you can find that. So Corvus the Crow may be small, may be dim, but it has some interesting things going on in the middle of it. So, does anyone have any questions before I move on? Right, do we have any further check-ins? Alright, this is KC50ZT, and Brenda, I'll turn it over to you now.
All right, thank you. The first article is entitled Large Magellanic Cloud, a Crowded Neighborhood. Taking advantage of the capabilities of the VLT Survey Telescope, the VST, at ESO's Paranal Observatory in Chile, astronomers capture this very detailed view image of the Tarantula Nebula and its numerous neighboring nebulae and star clusters. Tarantula, which is also known as 30 Doradus, is the brightest and most energetic star-forming region in the local group of galaxies. The Tarantula Nebula at the top of this image spans more than 1,000 light years and is located in the constellation of Dorado, the dolphinfish, in the far southern sky. The stunning nebula is part of the Large Magellanic Cloud, a dwarf galaxy that measures about 14,000 light years across. The Large Magellanic Cloud is one of the closest galaxies to the Milky Way. At the core of the Tarantula Nebula lies a young giant star cluster called NGC 2070, a starburst region whose dense core, R136, contains some of the most massive and luminous stars known. The bright glow of the Tarantula Nebula itself was first recorded by French astronomer Nicolas Louis de Lacaille, I don't know, in 1751. The star cluster in the Tarantula Nebula is much older, Hodge 301, in which at least 40 stars are estimated to have exploded as supernovae, spreading gas throughout the region. One example of a supernova remnant is the superbubble SNR in 157b, which encloses the open star cluster NGC 2060. This cluster was first observed by British astronomer John Herschel in 1836. Using an 18.6-inch reflector telescope at the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. On the outskirts of the Tarantula Nebula, on the lower right-hand side, it is possible to identify the location of the famous supernova SN 1987A. To the left hand of the Tarantula Nebula, one can see a bright open star cluster called NGC 2100, which displays a brilliant concentration of blue stars surrounded by red stars. And this cluster was discovered by Scottish astronomer James Dunlop in 1826 while working in Australia using his self-built 9-inch reflecting telescope. At the center of this image is the star cluster in Mission Nebula NGC 2074, another massive star-forming region discovered by John Herschel. Taking a closer look, one can spot a dark seahorse-shaped dust structure, the seahorse of the Large Magellanic Cloud. This is a gigantic pillar structure, roughly 20 light years long, almost 5 times the distance between the Sun and the nearest star, Alpha Centauri. The structure is condemned to disappear over the next million years as more stars in the cluster form. Their lights and winds will slowly blow away the dust pillars. Obtaining this image was only possible thanks to the VST's specially designed 256 megapixel camera called Omega Cam. The image was created from Omega Cam images through 4 different color filters, including one designed to isolate the red glow of ionized hydrogen. The article is entitled Cosmic Collision Lights Up the Darkness. It resembles a peaceful rose swirling in the darkness of the cosmos. NGC 3256 is actually the site of a violent clash. This distorted galaxy is a relic of a collision between 2 spiral galaxies, estimated to have occurred 500 million years ago. Today it is still reeling in the aftermath of this event. Located about 100 million light years away in the constellation of Vela, the Sails, NGC 3256 is approximately the same size as our Milky Way and belongs to the Hydra Centaurus supercluster. It still bears the marks of its tumultuous past and the extended luminous tails that sprawl out around the galaxy, thought to have formed 500 million years ago during the initial encounter between the 2 galaxies, which today form NGC 3256. These tails are studded with young blue stars, which were born in the frantic but fertile collision of gas and dust. Galaxies merger. Individual stars rarely collide because they are separated by such enormous distances, but the gas and dust of the galaxies do interact with spectacular results. The brightness blooming in the center of NGC 3256 gives away its status as a powerful starburst galaxy, host to vast amounts of infant stars born into groups and clusters. These stars shine most brightly in the far infrared, making NGC 3256 exceedingly luminous in this wavelength domain. Because of this radiation, it is classified as a luminous infrared galaxy. NGC 3256 has been the subject of much study due to its luminosity, its proximity, and its orientation. Astronomers observe its splendor face-on orientation that shows the disk in all its splendor. NGC 3256 provides an ideal target to investigate starbursts that may have been triggered by galaxy mergers. It holds particular promise to further our understanding of the properties of young star clusters in tidal tails. As well as being lit up by over 1,000 bright star clusters, the central region of NGC 3256 is also home to crisscrossing threads of dark dust and a large disk of molecular gas spinning around 2 distinct nuclei, the relics of the 2 original galaxies. One nucleus is largely obscured, only unveiled in infrared, radio, and X-ray wavelengths. Initial galaxies were gas-rich and had similar masses, as they seem to be exerting roughly equal influence on each other. Their spiral disks are no longer distinct, and in a few hundred million years' time, their nuclei will also merge, and the 2 galaxies will likely become united as a large elliptical galaxy. NGC 3256 was previously imaged through fewer filters by the NASA ESA Hubble Space Telescope as part of a large collection of 59 images of merging galaxies released for Hubble's 18th anniversary on 24th April 2008. All right, so we got ScienceDaily.com. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Thank you for that, Brenda. And all right, we'll move on to space history. And Kelly, go ahead, KH50ZT.
Well, this is K5KTX. We've got a couple of interesting items in the news this week, starting with NASA's Dawn spacecraft, which is maneuvering to its lowest ever orbit for a close-up examination of the inner solar system's only dwarf planet. In early June, Dawn will reach its new final orbit above Ceres. Soon after, it will begin collecting images and other science data from an unprecedented vantage point. This orbit will be less than 30 miles above the surface of Ceres, 10 times closer than the spacecraft has ever been. Dawn will collect gamma ray and neutron spectra, which help scientists understand variations in the chemical makeup of Ceres' uppermost layer. That very low orbit also will garner some of Dawn's closest images yet. Transfer from Dawn's previous orbit to its final one is not as simple as making a lane change. Dawn's operations team worked for months to plot the course for this second extended mission of the veteran spacecraft, which is propelled by an ion engine. Engineers mapped out more than 45,000 trajectories before devising a plan that will allow the best science observations. Dawn was launched in 2007 and has been exploring the two largest bodies in the main asteroid belt, Vesta and Ceres, to uncover new insights into our solar system. It entered Ceres' orbit in March of 2015. Is eagerly awaiting the detailed composition and high-resolution imaging from the new up-close examination, said Dawn's principal investigator, Carolyn of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. These new high-resolution data allow us to test theories formulated from the previous data sets and discover new features of this fascinating dwarf planet, she said. And also, speaking of these two large bodies, I mentioned Ceres, but also Vesta. I wanted to mention that Vesta is at this time is visible apparently to the naked eye. You probably have to be in some darker skies in order to see it, but right now Vesta is very near Saturn, not far from in the constellation of Sagittarius. It's right straight up the top of the tea kettle, and there's a bright star that's above that, and you just draw a straight line, and tonight is where Vesta is, and it will be visible probably over the next couple of months. So when you get a chance, get out and take a look at it. If it's naked eye, then certainly binoculars should be able to pick it up, and you can go online and probably find a map of where it is located each night. A few weeks ago, I mentioned about the Marco CubeSats, which launched with InSight, and some news about that this week. NASA has achieved a first for the class of tiny spacecraft known as CubeSats, which are opening new access to space. Over the past week, the two CubeSats called Marco A and Marco B have been firing their propulsion systems to guide themselves toward Mars. This process, called a trajectory correction maneuver, allows a spacecraft to refine its path to Mars following launch. Both CubeSats successfully completed this maneuver. NASA's InSight spacecraft just completed the same process on May the 22nd. CubeSats that make up the Mars Cube 1 or Marco mission both launched on May the 5th, along with the InSight lander, which is heading towards a November 26th touchdown on the red planet. They were designed to trail InSight on the way to Mars, aiming to relay back data about InSight as it enters the planet's atmosphere and attempts to land. The Marcos were never intended to collect any science data. Instead, they are a test of miniaturized communication and navigation technology that can blaze a path for future CubeSats sent to other planets. Both Marco A and B successfully completed a set of communications tests in the past couple of weeks, said John Baker, Program Manager for Planetary Small Sats at JPL. JPL built both Marco CubeSats and leads the mission. Marco A corrected its course to Mars relatively smoothly. Marco B faced some unexpected challenges. Its maneuver was smaller due to a leaky thruster valve that engineers have been monitoring for the past several weeks. The leak creates small trajectory changes on its own. Engineers have factored in these nudges so that Marco B can still perform a trajectory correction maneuver. It will take several more weeks of tracking to refine these nudges so that Marco B can follow InSight on its cruise through space. Once the Marco team has analyzed data, they'll know the size of follow-on maneuvers. Several more course corrections will be needed to reach the red planet. Should the CubeSats make it all the way to Mars, they will to relay data to Earth about InSight's landing. InSight won't rely on either CubeSat for the data relay, however. That job will fall to NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. So I wanted to mention this last week, but we sort of ran out of time. But if you remember, gosh, I can't believe it's been almost a year since last year's big total solar eclipse in the U.S. Well, if you remember, there was a QSO party in order to do some citizen science around that. And just in the last couple of weeks, the results from that QSO party have been released. And if you go to the HAMSCI website, which is hamsci.org, you should be able to find a link there to the article that was published just in the last couple of weeks about those results. They were a little bit over my head, but looked interesting anyway, and the images were pretty. But anyway, those results have been released, and so you might find that interesting. And so go out to the hamsci.org website, and you can get those results. May the 28th, 2002, NASA announced that the Mars Odyssey spacecraft had detected large quantities of water ice below the surface of Mars. Odyssey carried a gamma-ray spectrometer instrument suite that was able to detect water based on measuring the intensity of gamma and neutrons that are affected by the hydrogen in water. The instruments had the ability to observe this neutron intensity within a depth of 1 meter below the surface, indicating that water ice is present at least that far down. Amazed by the amount of ice discovered, Dr. William Boynton, principal investigator for Odyssey's gamma-ray spectrometer suite at the University of Arizona, Tucson, said, "It may be better to characterize this layer as dirty ice rather than as dirt-containing ice." May the 31st, 2015, the Cassini spacecraft made its final flyby of Saturn's non-spherical moon, Hyperion, which is the largest of Saturn's irregular potato-shaped moons. It's particularly unique because of its low density and sponge-like appearance. After leaving Hyperion, Cassini visited other moons before beginning its grand finale, a series of dramatic dives between Saturn and its rings. On June the 1st, in 2011, Space Shuttle Endeavour landed for the final time at 2:34 a.m. Eastern Time at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. On board was the crew of mission STS-134, returning after completing a 14-day mission to deliver the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, or AMS, as well as spare parts to the International Space Station. The AMS is a physics research experiment now operating on the ISS, designed to help understand the origin of the universe. Over the course of 25 missions, Endeavour spent a total of 299 days in space, orbited Earth 4,671 times, and traveled over 122.8 million miles. Although Endeavour is retired, it continues to inspire. Today, you can visit the orbiter up close at the California Science Center in Los Angeles. And by the way, I have a ticket to go see Endeavour next Saturday while I'm in California. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's all I've got this week. This is K5KTX. Back to you, Carolyn.
Thank you for that, Kelly. And this is K5OZT. All right. Tom, do you want to do any satellite passage tonight?
Absolutely, I can. There's not as many as usual, but I'll go ahead and give you what I got. This is KE5ICX, and we have Hubble Space Telescope has several passes. Nothing from ISS. I guess we're not in a good position to see anything. There was absolutely zero listed this week, so I'll give you what I got. Hubble Space Telescope has a couple. We have June 6th. That one is, well, there's two passes. The highest one is 0.9 magnitude at 1842 or 642 local time, reaches its highest point at 1846 and then falls at 1850 to the east-northeast. So let's see here if I can give you a little bit of info. Computer's starting to slow down. It's heating up. Let's see if I can do this. If I can't, then I will just move right on. Right, it's not cooperating, so I won't tell you exactly where it's going. But all of these passes that I give you are directly overhead. They always are the highest magnitude. June 7th has two passes. The best one is 0.7 magnitude at 1832, 6:32 p.m. Reaches its highest point at 1836 and falls at 1840 in the east-northeast. Then finally, June 8th. This one is 1.0 magnitude at 6:30 p.m. or 6:21 p.m. The southwest reached its highest point at 1825, 73 degrees, and then falls at 1830. I think that one goes into a little bit of shadow. ViSat, the only other satellite that I can get any information on this week. Everybody else is just not in a favorable path. There's two for it. One is June 7th. That one's a 3.1 magnitude at 19:55 in the evening. It comes out of shadow at 61 degrees out of the south-southwest, reaches its highest point at 74 degrees at 19:55, and then falls at 20:01 out of the north-northwest. Then on June 10th, we have a pass 2.8 magnitude at 19:43 local time. This one also is in shadow at 57 degrees out of the south-southeast, reaches the highest point almost directly overhead at 19:44 and falls at 19:49 due north. Why do you care? What does this matter? Well, it's pretty cool when this stuff does go over. It has, even at the lower magnitudes, you will be able to see it because it's moving, and that's what's really cool. A lot of folks have seen the ISS. Have you seen the Chinese space station and the International Space Station go over at the same time? I have. What you need to do, though, is you need to keep up with all of this at heavensabove.com. You'll get a lot of this information. It also includes information on amateur satellite passes as well. So it's pretty cool. Iridian flares as well are pretty cool, where you get reflections coming off of the large solar arrays. So that's it from me. This is KE5ICX back to net control.
Thank you for that, Tom. And Kelly, I forgot to mention after your segment there, the other day the Sky and Telescope email newsletter had that about Vesta, and they had some very good charts. So the Sky and Telescope website probably has those charts on it, so that'd be a good place to find some pretty detailed ones. So you might try that, KC50ZT. Now, do we have any questions and answers for anything tonight? We'll go on to the 73 round, and we'll have one last round of check-ins for anybody wishing to check in. Please come now.
Is mobile. Is Whiskey Golf 1 Golf Echo Mike.
Internet recognizes Whiskey Golf Echo or 1 Golf Echo Mike, and there was another station at the beginning. Can you come again?
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India WB4MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power Long Time.
When the net recognizes WB4MFI, and alright, that was final call, so we'll move on to the closing as soon as I can scroll down to it. Tonight we had 24 hams participating on the air. I'd like to thank you to all who checked in this evening, and we hope you'll join us here every next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. Remember, net, the sky's never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org, and you can follow the topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So, until next Saturday night, this is KC50ZT, Carolyn, and I will be closing the net at 10:26 p.m. local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy your evenings discovering the universe. KC50ZT.
And we'll be doing the Afterglow Movie Net solo, a Star Wars story. We went on a field trip, so you can listen in. There will be spoilers, however, if you haven't seen the movie. That's in 5 minutes. KE5ICX. State.
Completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
is N5H White.
This is KE5ICX, saying we need to use the repeater before we begin tonight's Afterglow. All right, hearing none. This is KE5ICX. I'll be your net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We'll be discussing tonight's fine film. Actually, it is a pretty good film, Solo, A Star Wars Story. A number of us went out to see the movie a week ago today and enjoyed it immensely. In fact, I think we had 12, 13 people show up for that. We went over to the Cinemark 17 at 6:35 and 35, and then went out for lunch. Afterwards, I guess an early dinner maybe, perhaps, around 3 o'clock. So we do these every once in a while. We actually go and see a movie that was made in this century. It's rare, but it does happen. All right. One thing I will tell you is that I do know that not everybody has seen this film. It is only in theaters currently, unless you have special powers and are able to see it in the comfort of your own home. So let's do this. You're welcome to check in. If you have seen Solo, A Star Wars Story, we definitely want to hear from you. If you've not, that's okay too. We're going to ask you questions about the character Han Solo, but be warned, there are spoilers galore tonight. So if you don't want to tune out, turn it down and just read our lips over the radio. This is KE5ICX. Let me go ahead and give you a synopsis of the movie. From the world-famous Wikipedia.org, so I wish I had these notes, but I don't. Somebody else has done them. Solo, A Star Wars Story, or simply Solo, is a 2018 American space western film based on the Star Wars character Han Solo. It was directed by Ronnie Howard. It was produced by Lucasfilm and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It's the second in the Star Wars anthology films following the 2016 Rogue One. The plot takes place prior to the events of A New Hope and explores the early adventures of Han Solo and Chewbacca as a pair are involved in a heist within the criminal underworld and meet a young Lando Calrissian. The film stars a bunch of people I can't pronounce. Let's see, Arden and Rich as Solo, alongside Woody Cheers, Harrelson, Emilia Clarke, Donald Glover. Yeah, probably the kid. Thandie Newton, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Drukna Sutangmo, and Paul Bettany. Lucas began development on the young Han Solo film back in 2012. Lucas commissioned Lawrence Kasdan to write the screenplay, and Kasdan later joined with his son Jonathan. Principal photography began in January 2017 at Pinewood Studios under the direction of Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. The pair left the project in 2017 after reportedly being fired over creative differences with Lucasfilm, and Howard took over directing duties. With an estimated budget of nearly $250 million, one of the most expensive films ever made. Film had its world premiere in Los Angeles on May 10th, 2018, also screened on May 15th at the Cannes Film Festival for its United States release on May 25th in Real D, 3D, and IMAX 3D. We saw it in IMAX 3D, by the way. It has grossed $210 million worldwide and received generally positive reviews, with critics praising the cast, visuals, and action sequence, although many criticized the pacing and noted that the film added nothing new to the Star Wars franchise. I'm not going to read a lot here on the plot. This is the background. I'll read you the first couple of paragraphs, and then you can use your imagination to see where it goes after that. On the shipbuilding world of Corellia, Orphan children are made to steal in order to survive. Young Han, or Han, don't forget, Han, and his lover, Quira, make an escape from the clutches of a local criminal gang. They bribe an Imperial officer with a stolen sample of coaxium, yeah, that coaxium, a powerful hyperspace fuel in exchange for passage on an outgoing transport. But Kira is apprehended by their pursuers before she can board. Han vows to return for her and joins the Imperial Navy as a flight cadet. He is given the surname Solo by the recruiting officer. Clever, eh? Years later, Han has been expelled from the Imperial Flight Academy for insubordination while serving as an infantryman during a battle on the planet Mimban. He encounters a gang of criminals posing as Imperial soldiers led by Tobias Beckett. He tries to blackmail them into taking him with them, but Beckett has him arrested for desertion and thrown into the pit to be fed to a beast. A Wookiee named, are you ready for this? Chewbacca. Able to speak Chewbacca's language, Han persuades him to work together to escape their confinement. In need of extra hands? Not Hans, but hands. Beckett rescues them and enlists them in the gang's plot to steal a shipment of coaxium on the planet Vandor. The planet goes awry when the Cloud Riders show up with their leader NC's nest, resulting in the deaths of 2 members and the destruction of the coaxium. There's more, but I'm going to stop there. So, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to pause for just a moment, let the doggies out. I'll be right back, and then I'll take check-in. So be ready. We'll be talking about the plot. All right, I'm back. 1 dog is out, 2 are inside. Somebody keep count of that, if they would. All right, I'll take check-ins. Please come now with your call sign, your name. You can tell me where you're transmitting from if you'd like. Let me know if you saw the movie Solo, A Star Wars Story. Please come now.
Secret 1, this is November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom and Irving. Yes, we saw the movie in Boston on opening day.
Whiskey 5, Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Dallas.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burl in Dallas.
November 5, Bravo Bravo. Bill and Irving, yes, I saw the movie.
Low 5. Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell have not seen the movie. We'll be monitoring in the background. K5JW.
WV5OZL, Brendan DeSoto. I did see the movie.
Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville. I have not seen the movie.
This is Zulu Golf, Quebec, Andre in Dallas, and I did see the movie.
Let me stop there. I'll need a fill. I had a brain freeze here for a minute, but I think I got everybody. Let's see. N5HYP, Tom kicked this off. Ian Irving, yes, he saw the movie. W5EBB, David in Dallas. You saw the movie, correct?
Correct. W5EBB.
I gotta be official. I think I saw you see it, so I wanted to make sure. KF5TSK, Burl and Dallas, yep. N5BB, Bill Irving, yep. K5JDW, John in Coppell, no. And he's just listening. He doesn't have anything to say. So there may be spoilers, John, be aware. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto, yep. KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn, no, she did not see it. KG5Z, Golf, Quebec. Did I get that right? I froze on your call sign and I missed your name. Would you give it to me again, please? I'm old.
No problem at all. That is Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Golf, Quebec, Andre in Dallas.
Excellent. Thank you, Andre. And I do have you down as having seen the movie. Any additional RF check-ins for Solo, A Star Wars Story? Please come now.
Whiskey Alpha 5, Romeo Foxtrot Golf, Rollin in Dallas, and yes, I saw it.
Whiskey Alpha 5, Romeo Foxtrot Golf, Rollin in Dallas. Yep, you saw the movie. I got you in there. I'm going to go to Echolink. Probably there's two. Go ahead. I'll take Echolink check-ins. Please check in with your call sign name. Let me know if you saw the movie.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy, and Sherman, and yes, I saw the movie.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, and Jay, and I did see the film.
Excellent. I've got our two Echolink check-ins. KFI PDS, Miss Billy and Sherman. Yep, she saw it. KG5BZWJ in near Weatherford. He didn't say that, but I know where he is. Yep, he also saw the film. Okay, very good. Actually, most of these folks I would saw the movie with, so this is great. Okay, let me let the dogs in, and then Tom, you'll be first. I need for you to think about the plot. What you think about the plot. Everyone else after that, you're in the order that you're in the order. You have to build upon or subtract from whatever Tom says, because Tom is on the spot. He was also the first guy to speak. So, N5, HYP, Tom and Irving, what you think about the plot?
This is N5HYP. I'm not sure I can take the pressure. Good evening, everybody. It was a fun ride. As Tom, you mentioned, it didn't necessarily add anything new to the Star Wars saga, as it probably shouldn't. Although I thought the plot, I kept waiting to have an appearance by Jabba the Hutt, and it was only alluded to in that appearance. So it seemed to, that it didn't quite fill the gap quite as well as Rogue One did to try to catch you up to how the plans were delivered for the destruction of the Death Star. Hold on here. I thought it was a fun ride. It moved along interestingly, and it gives you an interesting set of characters. We'll talk about that later on. To kind of deal with. There was a question, and I would love some of the Star Wars nerds here to clarify. At the end, there was a Darth Maul hologram, I believe it was, that the female character, Hans's now adult love interest at the beginning is talking to, and there was questions about whether or not that was properly positioned in the story as far as the Star Wars universe from episodes 1, 2, and 3. So, would appreciate some thoughts on that. Back to next from N5HYP.
Right, very good, Tom, and this is KE5ICX. Well, I haven't answered that question. I will defer if somebody else has the actual answer, because that was something, the Darth Maul thing, I was concerned about, and there was a super fan who I've spoken to since the movie who explains it. So, W5EBB, David, Dallas, what'd you think about the plot?
Well, I thought it was pretty good. It moved along very well. And as to the IMDb statement that it adds nothing new to Star Wars, well, that's not a bad thing. What it did do was it elaborated on a lot of the things that Star Wars fans wanted to know more about. Some of the things that were mentioned casually, but you know, there was more story behind it, and it filled in some of those gaps, such as how Han got his last name Solo, the Kessel Run, and being able to actually watch it happen in less than 12 parsecs if you round down, how Han and Lando met, and the poker game that you know, Han won the Millennium Falcon fair and square, and the interesting pots in that particular card game. A potpourri of trinkets, gadgets, scrap metal, and starships. And of course, the big thing that everybody wanted to know, and this could have been a spin-off on its own, a movie called When Han Met Chewie. Now, a criticism, too many plot twists at the end of the movie. I counted 3 that were just crammed in right at the last. And that really just kind of derailed, I think, a lot of the preceding parts of the movie. And that gets more into the characterization and the consistency of the characters that I'll talk about in the next round. W5EBB.
KF5TSK, Burl, your comments on the plot.
Well, I had a different impression of the plot. I was trying to, I guess, relate Solo to other Star Wars movies. I kind of got, was lost in, what happened to the evil Galactic Empire. They were still there. The Rebels, was this the original Rebels, or, is this a new group? The organization that had the circle, I was like, well, how do they fit into the whole organization of things? There was so much that I, was trying to relate, but couldn't relate. But, some things did and some things did. KF5TSK, back to that.
Something I hadn't thought about. Now I'm thinking. N5BB, Bill over in Irving. Yeah, you saw the movie. What's your comments on the plot?
5BB. Well, I agree with what David said there. And at the end of the movie, the twist just kind of leave your head spinning. It's like don't really understand what people's real how can I say this? You don't know really where they're going to go in the future. So the end of the movie looked to me like they designed it so they can do anything they want to next. And Kira can she can do anything. I mean, it doesn't make any difference what she does because they've left it open that way. The Woody Harrelson character, Beckett, man, by the end of the movie, he seems to have no morals at all. Really, really weird. Kira looked like she had morals, but at the end of the movie, you really can't tell. So, I don't know. Those layers, under layers of morality are kind of beyond me. That's all I got. In 5BB.
Thanks, Bill. And I put an asterisk next to your comments because I have a rant on that. Let's see. John's there. He's just going to listen. WB5OZL. Miss Brenda, your comments on the plot.
WB5OZL. Well, I liked it. I liked the movie, but of course I'm the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, almost. And I didn't see any serious plot holes. I thought the movie, it was paced well. It moved along pretty well. Somebody mentioned that they didn't hear any mention of the Force in this. And to me, Star Wars without the Force is kind of odd. But wish they could just kind of mention it in passing so that it would just be in there. Yeah, I thought it was good. I'll just set it up for now. Liked it a lot. No real complaints. And wouldn't mind seeing it again. Back to net, WB5OZL.
All right, thank you. This is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We are talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. And I will take check-ins once I get through this group. Let's see. Next up is Andre, KG5Z, Gulf, Quebec. Andre, your thoughts on the plot?
KG5ZGQ. You know, honestly, I think David and Bill pretty much hit the nail on the head for me. The movie was a feel-good movie for me. They covered a lot of things I always wondered about. It answered a lot of things. I guess the only thing about the plot that was weird to me was the Kessel Run seemed to really they drug it on. The scenes seemed to just kind of hang there, and I was it was weird for me.
All right, thank you, Andre. Let's see. We have WA5RFG, Roland. Your comments on the plot.
WA5RFG. I think they just kind of threw everything in. I like that they covered kind of a lot of backstories, and it's obvious that this was intended to leave them room to create a whole other series of follow-on movies from it. But it kind of jumped around a little bit, but it seemed to be good and solid, and you had a good storyline that followed logically through it. So all in all, I enjoyed it greatly. Over.
Ron, thanks. Good comments. I agree. Campsite PDS, Miss Billy over on Echolink. Your thoughts on the plot?
Well, good evening. Yeah, I agree with what's been said earlier. The things were stretched out nicely at the beginning and then really rushed at the end. I totally agree with David's comment on that. yeah, I really enjoyed seeing the fleshed out backstory about, how Han and Chewie got together and how he, won the Millennium Falcon in the card game. Was very happy to see that. Those were key things I was hoping that this movie would deliver, and it did. And I did think some of the action sequences were too long. I noticed towards the end of the movie I started kind of glancing at my watch, just seeing how things were running on time. But so yeah, I agree. There were some of the action sequences that could have gotten to it a little quicker. But on the whole, I really liked it. It was action packed. The characters. We'll talk about characters later, but they hit all the right notes with as far as the story that you wanted to see, and then it brought things that it fleshed out some details that were probably from the books and comic books and things like that. I'm not a super fan. I haven't read any of the side story books or comics or anything, but it seemed like in reading about some of the characters after watching the film, they did tie in information like that to pull in other elements of the Star Wars universe to flesh out some of the details. So I thought that was that was good to include that information. Of course, they have someone who oversees all of that. They actually have a person at Lucasfilm called the Keeper of the Holocron. So they have a person whose job it is to monitor the continuity and the character database and the story database across all mediums. So there better not be any plot holes, or that person, Mr. Leland Chi, will be in trouble. So they actually employ somebody to keep all that story straight. They call him the Keeper of the Holocron. So that person maintains all the continuity, so it better flow and better fit in the right places. And Tom, I think I'll let you bring the information about the Darth Maul character, about what you heard from your super fan, and see if it's the same as what I looked up. And if there's anything I'll have to add, I'll add to that. But on the whole, I thought it was a great story, and I really liked it. So with that, I'll throw it back to you. This is KFI PDS. Back to Matt.
Thank you, Billy, and very good. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the Darth Maul mystery. KG5BZWJ, your comments on the plot.
This is KG5BZW. Well, there's I like that I can't really say within the story that there was anything that was too egregious or whatnot. There were a few things where I had a little bit of trouble fitting it in with the larger story. Of course, there's I guess some of us like to pretend the first three don't exist, but not the first three that were made, the episodes 1 through 3, but they kind of do, and it kind of matters a little bit. It really, I don't think they explained how exactly this story fit in with episode 1, 2, and 3. I mean, clearly it's not the Empire is now the Republic and all that, but then that plot twist at the end with another Darth Maul character, kind of Sith or whatever. I'm not quite sure the taxonomic nature of the being. You kind of would think that such a character would be. It was rare that Darth Maul. He was like what, last of his kind or something. Maybe again, this is not so much of a matter of there being actual contradiction. I just don't know I think they started they didn't quite explain enough on that, and I feel like I've spent too much on that. The other, what else is there? Let me see. I within the story itself, I actually liked some of the plot twists at the end. Although, yeah, it was kind of tacked on, which I didn't quite like that. There's the one kind of funny, not exactly plot related, but I'll go ahead and say it. The hand shot first issue in A New Hope. It originally was filmed. I thought the weird. I mean, the self-defense, but it was an interesting plot twist with regard to. I should have gotten the other character's name, but I thought there was a kind of a interesting but weird allusion to that thing. Maybe an unintentional allusion, but interesting nonetheless. And I think I've had my say. There's other things could be talked about, but this is a long net. So I'll hand it back to Net Control. This is KG5BZW.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, well, it's all confusing. Let's see, my comments on this one, and I love hitchhiking off of everybody else because it helps me in the process. I thought, first off, just some comments on starting with Burrell's comments I thought were rather interesting. Is who are the rebels? Is this the beginning of the rebels? Is this the start of it? Is it a different group? Is it a splinter group? Nobody knows. That is a really interesting comment. I hadn't thought about that because this is before the Empire is being attacked from the inside, or at least as far as we know. We don't know a lot about how their rise to power. Well, we know about the rise to power, but what we don't know about is this whole transitional and rebel part that comes about later on. Bill's N5VV's comments about Beckett, I thought that was really interesting. I put an asterisk next to it. Where do the morals go? And in movies, how do you handle that? I think that's a really interesting comment. And I think that you can go too far, and I think they kind of did in this movie. You got to have characters that you feel sympathetic to. And the Beckett character, I thought, should have been sympathetic. He had a lot of things going for him. Woody Harrelson playing Woody Harrelson with Star Wars regalia. The fact that he, ended up being so conniving in the end, that's probably close to real life, but to a point where, do you like that or not? I think one of the most interesting, actually, the weird funny part is when he gets shot. Just before he gets shot, he says, let me tell you, here's where you made a mistake, kid, and then he shot him. And Solo shot him. Okay, well, he definitely did shoot first. That was actually unintentionally funny in a way that I guess my warped sense of humor thought that was hilarious in a certain way, because in every other movie you get an opportunity to go and hear the story forever and ever and ever. Oops, that's a character thing. Sorry. Plot-wise, let me continue. Forgive me. You can latch onto that if you want. Let's see, there was one other comment. Hang on. Mention of the Force. There was no mention of the Force. We did see Darth Maul, and he is credited at the end of the movie. I went through all 5,000 lines of credits, and Darth Maul is listed. so he does exist, whether this is the sun, if this is Junior or the third or the fourth or the fifth, I don't know. But he pulled a lightsaber from off the side with his big magnetic hand or whatever, so the Force was not mentioned, technically true, but the Force was on display. Here's my beef, the holocron, what's his name, that guy. The fact that Darth Maul does show up, the superfan, from what I understand, and I'm going to call out Miss Billy here in a second, said that Darth Maul, well, maybe we'll do it on the next round because that's characterization, but the Darth Maul character somehow or another was resurrected in one of the movies, not movies, but books or something. And that drives me a little nuts because you have to decide what's canon and what is not. And you need to, if you're going to do that in a movie and you have people that only go see the movies, you should explain it. I'm sorry, you can't take a character that was cut in half and then suddenly they appear out of nowhere and not at least explain it or acknowledge it. That's just me. My personal comments about the plot, this is classic Star Wars to me. I thought it was great. I enjoyed the fact that it was a pretty fast-paced movie, except for the very beginning, which was real slow, except for the speeder chase on the docks. That was pretty classic streets of San Francisco, and that's what it was. I love the Bond supervillain with his yacht and everything. No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. I kept waiting for that line to show up, but it didn't, but it did. So we saw it. I thought that was cool. I enjoyed the heck out of that. The visuals on it were quite good. They're consistent with Star Wars, the early years, in the sense that what they're trying to do, we're on the major planet, on the planets, and it does tie in, or seems to tie in, with everything that's going on. I'll stop there, but I, for the most part, personally liked this movie. I think I liked it better than Rogue One. So, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and ask if there are any additional check-ins who'd like to talk about Solo, a Star Wars story. If you've not checked in, I'm going to take you now. So please come with your call sign, your name. Did you see the movie? Please come now. All right, everybody start thinking about this. You know the routine. I think everybody has checked in at one time or another. We're going to talk about characterization. I kind of blew it on mine a little bit, but N5HYP. Tom, what did you think of the characterization?
This is N5HYP. Yeah, overall I liked the characterization. The Glover interpretation of the Landau Calrissian character, Billy Williams' character from Empire Strikes Back, was pretty good. It really felt like, that one really felt, I think, more like, I could see him and Billy Williams very nicely there. Solo's character was good. He wasn't quite as, I don't think he was quite as sarcastic as the episode 4, 5, and 6 of Solo was under Harrison Ford. I think Harrison puts a little more sarcasm into the verbiage. I sure hope they don't try to build a whole movie around Chewbacca. That would be kind of an interesting and frustrating thing because you'd have to have a lot of subtitles, or you basically have a lot of people interpreting what he says. Please, let's not do a Chewbacca episode here. Time for Melpo. It was a lot of, I guess, it was a fun ride. I will say that. This has been 5852 back again.
Thank you, Tom. And I've got the young characterization thing here as well. I got comments on that one. W5EBB. David, your comments on characterization, on characters.
Original stormtroopers are back. Yay. That was one of my favorite parts. Okay. And that will revive a whole new legions of 501st costumers, I think. Now, so the characters, they have to have some kind of consistency. And so many of them at the end did not. And for them to flip without really any justification, it's kind of empty. You know, the story doesn't really support that. You know, it was just kind of annoying. And it's like, when it happened. But in the more general sense, the most recent Star Wars movies have lacked one huge element. And that is, you don't see any examples of bad people turning good. You see a lot of examples of bad people, of good people turning bad, or ones you think that are good at least. So you never know who's who, what their inner character, what their integrity really is. And I just finished watching the whole series of The Man in the High Castle on Amazon, and that leads me to this generalized statement. We see the events defining the nature of the characters when we'd rather see the nature of the characters defining the events. Example, Han Solo, inner self is good, and in A New Hope he demonstrates that. You're all clear, kid, now let's blow this thing and go home. Okay, if he hadn't made that choice, you know, that was seminal, that was critical. Or Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi. You know, he turns to the good side. You don't see a lot of that in Star Wars, and that's one critical part of plots and characters that's missing, and Kathleen Kennedy needs to get it right next time. That's what I say. And I think George Lucas thinks the same thing. Kathleen Kennedy at the helm also, you know, we need strong and weak male characters, we need strong and weak female characters to kind of balance things out. At the end, the leader of the Marauders, unmasked, is a young girl. And I just went, you know, okay, why? Well, why was it necessary? That just sort of, it's like a bait and switch, you know, with that big, bulky costume and the mask. And it kind of reminded me of a line from The Last Jedi, when Snoke accused Kylo of just being a child in a mask, you know? It's like, it's almost like it's portraying that character in the same light, which is a bizarre kind of a connection. It just didn't work for me at all. The L-337 droid, you know, saving, you know, the droids and releasing them from that planet where the fuel was unrefined fuel was, that character could have been well developed, but instead it just seemed like a cheap stereotype and almost an offensive one in the way it was done. And so I think they missed the mark on that entirely. Now, just something interesting about the Chewbacca scene where he's freeing all the related simian species. It looked like something out of Planet of the Apes. And I don't know if anyone else noticed, but it almost looked a little bit like 2001. A couple of the ones he was freeing had very coarsely made masks, and it looked like a scene out of 2001. Let's see, I think that's all I wrote down here. Back to net, W5EBB.
Thank you, David, and I have the longest notes for you on anything so far. I do take notes while people are talking, just so that I can have something to talk about when I get to my spot, because I'm not as smart. So I saddle up and use everybody else's comments. Very good comments. Let's see, K5TSK, Mr. Burrow, your comments on characterization.
Well, my comment on characterization is that at the end of the movie, Hans is searching for another heist, and it's like, well, what do you do when when you heist something or get paid? What do you do when you steal enough? The only pleasure anyone seemed to have in the movie was you could go to the bar and you could gamble, and then it's like, well, what else is it? And how does this need for heist, I guess, fit into the future? KF5PSK back to net.
This is KE5ICX. Yep, when is enough is enough. N5BB, Mr. Bill, your comments on characters.
This is N5BB. Well, it's hard for me to improve what's been said. I like David's comments, and I didn't like the way the morals just switched at the last minute near the end of the movie. I wish the characters had more of a moral core. Of course, Han Solo has got kind of in one sense, a rotten moral core. You don't really know how he applies morality exactly. He's just in it for himself. But some of the other characters I wish had been more stable and hadn't flipped at the end. I mean, the really bad guys are really bad, and they're really bad. They're just really bad. But the other characters are willing to flip back and forth at a moment's notice, and you don't really know. I don't like that, I guess. I just don't like that degree of ambiguous morality, I guess, in the movie, especially near the end. In FABB.
All right, thank you, Bill. And I agree with you. Let's see. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, characterization. What do you think?
Oh, WB50ZL. I liked it. I think, are we getting the impression now that all of these Star Wars female main characters all look alike? Are we going to have trouble telling them apart at some point? And, I think that was one thing that kind of crossed my mind. I still have a little hard time dealing with that actor as Han Solo, although he did a pretty good job. He got a lot of the mannerisms right, but he just doesn't look enough like him for me to totally buy in. I love the Chewbacca character. I thought he had a little more dimension than he does in subsequent movies. I was sad not to see R2-D2 and 3CPO. I don't know how they would have worked it in, but I'm sure they could have contrived something. But originally, they were supposed to be the characters that went through all 9 movies, the ones that Lucas said he was going to make. They would be the thread, and they're not. So I think that's kind of sad that we don't see them. Lee Harrelson really, really did a good job. This is a great part for him. And, but, you know, it's interesting the twists and turns of the movie, and so you don't really know the characters. You think you do, and then you don't, and then you do, and then you don't. So, it's a little disappointed in the costumes, but that's just me. Back to net, WB50ZL.
I'm sensing a pattern here, but I'll discuss that when we get there. KC50ZT. Miss Carolyn, I don't know if I missed you on the last round. What do you have for comments? You can talk both plot and characterization. My apologies. I think I missed you on this thing. I know that you did not see the film, but do you have anything that you would like to bring to the net in regards to Star Wars and Han Solo? Go ahead.
It sounds interesting, and I definitely do want to see it eventually. That does, like, seeing, how he and Chewie became such friends. You'd always sort of wondered about that in other movies, but I definitely want to see it, though, eventually, and I can't really say much about anything else. KC50ZT.
Right, very good. And yeah, it's kind of an origins film of sorts, so it's kind of hard to, we don't want to give everything away, although we gave a lot away so far. But if you'd almost have to live on a deserted island in order to not know what the plot is at this point. So let's move on to KG5ZGQ. Andre, your comments on characterization.
I think David and Bill pretty much said everything I wanted to say again. I will say that I enjoyed it. I know some of the mannerisms were kind of forced here and there. I did find that the female droid L337 was a really funny character throughout the whole thing. It actually made me laugh. But it was a very, strong female character, very hero-esque hero. And I definitely agree that everybody was kind of back and forth. Like, there was no consistency in morality, or you can't really tell who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. You think this person's a hero, and then they're not. They just flip-flop and wishy-washy. KG5ZGQ back then.
Hey, thank you, Andre. I'll put you in the column of what the heck is going on with our characters. WA5RFG, Rollin, your comments on characterization.
Well, I think I'm going to take a slight contrarian view of the characterizations. I like the fact that they kept us guessing about the people. They weren't simple. I think we find that Hans is a bad boy, but he's not. He's got a down inside. Does have a moral compass. He could have let the rebels stew. Instead, he joins up with them. He didn't have to do that. And I think when push comes to shove, we find that he will do the right thing instead of the wrong thing, though he plays the bad boy, but I don't think in reality he is. So that's my take on the fact that it changes around, and I like that it did keep us guessing. We never were sure exactly who was going to end up on the good side and the bad side, and that'll just be, I think that's reality. I think most of us have a little of both in us, and depending on the circumstances, we choose to go one way or another. Back to net control, WA5RG.
Thanks, Ron. And I put an asterisk next to your name. I have some comments about what you said. Very interesting. I like that. KFI-PDS, Miss Billy, your thoughts on characterization. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what all has been said. They're just very interesting comments. Yeah, I agree that the actor Alden Ehrenreich, he doesn't really look like Harrison Ford, but I thought, you know, he got the mannerisms and the charm down. You know, he came across as very charming, and I really did like his portrayal. I thought he did a good job. Harrison Ford, you know, has very distinctive looks, and it would be hard to find someone that would totally, you know, look like him. So you do have to kind of suspend some of that there for that. To me, I thought his mannerisms and charm kind of made up for that. So, and I agree that, yeah, there was a lot of, yeah, moral compass polarization, flip-flopping. And I think they really played that to help. The whole Star Wars, to me, the whole franchise, you know, is built around this, you know, good versus bad, and everybody has both elements in them. I totally agree with that comment. It is not absolute. It is a continuum, and the amount of good and bad that you see in people, you know, it comes out in different ways at different times, and this movie really maximized on that, capitalized on that, and to the point of almost overusing it. I agree with that there was so much, you know, to me, these people are moral chameleons. They're just changing, you know, or appearing to change their morality as the situation dictates, but it's their survival that's on the line most of the time. You know, their lives are at stake, and they're going to do whatever it takes to survive. That's what Kira did. I thought that, you know, the Han Solo character, he starts out as being almost naively idealistic, because he is going to leave that planet, and then he's going to raise up some money, go buy a spaceship, and go back for Kira. You know, that was his main goal. And when he bumps into her, he's so stunned that she, like, left. You know, he expected her, I guess, to be still sitting on the planet on Corellia waiting for him to come rescue her. And he seemed a little baffled, like, oh, my God, you know, here she was. And she had to make choices of her own, and had gone on and lived her life. You know, of course, it had been 3 years, so she may have thought he wasn't coming back after all, or had gotten killed or something. But, you know, so she had to make do with whatever situations came her way. And so, to me, that really helps play into the Solo character, because when we encounter Han Solo in A New Hope, he is extremely cynical and does not trust anybody. And in this movie, we can see the start of how that part of his makeup, the cynical, you know, he makes his own destiny, doesn't believe in the Force, you know, he believes in very deterministic, that, you know, he makes his own destiny, and, you know, that there's no force that controls his destiny. He says that in A New Hope, you know, and we can see how that starts to shape in him in this film, because he's surrounded by so many characters whose morality just seems to flip on a dime, that he literally can't trust anybody. And we can see the start of that in this film. So I think it was played, that was, you know, played correctly to that. So let me reset. Hang on. So I think that they really, you know, capitalized on that, and that's where you can see the start of the cynicism rising up in Han. And I bet you they do sequels. You know, there's probably going to be some more that'll fill in the gaps. The rest of, at least they'll do one more film. And then there was a question, I don't know who raised it, about canon. I think Tom mentioned that, about how do you decide what's canon and what's not. Well, in the Star Wars world, this is very, very specifically defined, and it's not complicated, but there are many layers to canon. So I went out and found a Wikipedia article that talks about extending the Star Wars franchise to other media, and there's a detailed explanation about the canon. So they started out having these large black binders, which they called their Bibles, and then in 2000 they hired Leland Chee to be the continuity database administrator, and he implemented a database to replace those binders, and they named it the Holocron because that's a term that's used within the Star Wars universe for the ancient repositories of knowledge and wisdom used by the Jedi and the Sith. And so he set up this database, and there's 5 different levels of canon. Of course, there's, what they call G canon, or George Lucas canon, which is George's view of the universe. And then there's television canon, which comprises the animated film and TV series. Then there's continuity canon, which extends to the books, comics, and video games. And then there's secondary canon, that's something that is superseded by anything in higher order of canon, where there may be some contradiction. Something that's considered secondary is the Star Wars Holiday Special. And then anything that's in direct contradiction to any of the higher canon gets thrown into N canon, which is non-canon. So they monitor the canonical aspects of the Star Wars universe very, very closely. And I didn't read all the details, but if you Google Star Wars expanded to other media, there is a Wikipedia article that goes into great detail about the early works publication history, all the different expansions, and then the holocron and the continuity. So it's a pretty extensive article. Let me reset. I have one more comment. With regards to the Darth Maul character, Tom, when I did some research on it, this movie and the timeline takes place 10 to 13 years before A New Hope. So at the beginning of the movie, we're 13 years before the Battle of Yavin. And then we go 3 years into the future, and so we're within 10 years of the Battle of Yavin, which was in A New Hope. So that's where this movie is situated. And the Darth Maul character, I was reading, he had, of course, gotten cut in two, but his hatred for Obi-Wan kept him going, kept him alive. And he, just to make it very short, he came in contact with a character that gave him mechanical legs. So I wonder if they'll, in another movie, show the Darth Maul character. It lists him as Maul in the credits. It is played by the same actor, Ray Park. So it is the Maul character, and that's what I was reading. So you may have more detailed information since you talked with somebody, but that was information that I found online. So it is the same character, and the movie is appropriately placed in the timeline, so there's no funny business going on there with regards to playing around with where the movie is situated. But I was looking at timelines, and it situates it, by the end of the movie, we're 10 years away from the Battle of Yavin. So I believe the Han Solo character is supposed to be about 10 years older than Luke and Leia. So the actors may be a little bit older than that. That would place Han Solo at about 19 or so in this film, and of course the character is older than that, so it may not quite come across, but that's what I was reading, so I did a little research on my own. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KFI PDS, back to next.
Very interesting. I had heard basically the same thing. All right, KG5BZWJ over in Weatherford. your comments on plot, not plot, characterization. I'll get it right. It's getting late. Go ahead, Jay. This is KE5ICX, by the way.
Yeah, well, I guess there isn't much I wanted to say, but that a lot of people had already said that I do think that Lando Cardassian and Han Solo were very well acted as per how we see them in the characters as in the other Star Wars films. I wanted to say something about Beckett and Kira and how it actually seemed consistent once I thought about it a little bit that Kira and Beckett would be both where you can't really see what kind of moral compass they have. They've always had. You have to consider the environment that the character supposedly, these characters have both worked in, and it's hard for me to see. I mean, if Kira were to show you, what she was truly made of at any point in time, she could easily have lost her life, and this is just one of those things where you just don't know whether or not is she under duress with, not really duress. Let's just put it that way. She's in control, but is she being pressured? That's the word I should say. Or has she been pressured, and is it kind of some sort of what's the term? Shoot, I should have written. I just thought of it, and I can't. Of course, I can't think of it at the time. But it's not. You don't know what bigger picture she's looking at and what she's trying to guard against. Let's just say it that way. And it could be that she's, she really is aligned with Darth Maul, and maybe she isn't. Who knows? And I thought that was, Becky said a lot of, Han Solo's mistrust of others, lack of trust, I should say. And I thought that's, very interesting. I seem to be running out of steam here. I don't believe there was anything else otherwise. Oh, no, there's one more. Let me reset. This is more of a comment on back to the plot. I thought they had developed some interesting characters with, like Sandy Newton's character and the lead character. I wish they had not killed them off, basically. But otherwise, I don't really have anything else. This is KG5BZW. Back to net.
And this is KE5ICX, and we're talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. We all went to see this film. Well, most of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. All right, I'll make my comments, and then I'll take additional check-ins if there's anybody out there. this late, but that's okay. Characterization, I agree with what everybody said, and I can see where there are problems with the script, the motivations, how people flip back and forth. I can see people flipping and changing over a period of time. They may start one way and then events change them into something else. And it brings up an interesting point. I remember, and I'm going to go out in left field on this one, but when the movie A Clockwork Orange came out, the story was different in the sense that the character at the end, our principal character, changed and realized he wasn't that person anymore. There were 21 chapters in the book, and Stanley Kubrick filmed 20 of them. In this case, the character remained a despot to the very end. How do you possibly empathize with somebody like that? And the answer is you really don't. I don't even think the worst of nature of individuals actually empathize with people who are terrible. Although maybe they do. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist. I think in the end, and this is one of the comments that was made earlier about the original series, the original Star Wars series, the George Lucas stuff, sometimes it was terrible. We know that. But there were characters that were nobler, or they changed for the better. Certainly characters changed for the worse, but in the end, the good guys win. That was the point. And we aren't getting that in the Star Wars stories we've got now, at least not so far. And these anthology stories, we're demanding a completely different approach to the thing, because that's what they're giving us. They're giving us a self-contained story. And we're kind of fighting over it because we don't know what to make of it. I have to say I was a little annoyed with the end of Rogue One, where everybody dies. I'm not a big fan of everybody dying in a movie. It may work for opera, but it doesn't work for a movie where you're going to see something. In this case, there's less of that. They could make 1,000 sequels, although now, because of the box office results on this one, they may not. They may not even continue with a Han Solo story number 2 because of this. We'll see. But it does not, the flippant characterizations that go on are a problem. Now, there is a comment at the very end with, was it Quinron? She says, Han says, I'm a bad guy. I'm the bad guy in all of this. And she says, no, Han, you're the good guy in this story. And she's right. He is. He is the good guy. He's the one character. And that was brought out in the Skywalker series, the 3 movies with Luke Skywalker in it and Han Solo. So I think that really does make a difference. Carolyn mentioned an interesting comment about the characters changing all the time, and it kept you guessing. And I'm good with that. I like that. But I also have a comment, too, with that. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, probably a bigger Star Trek fan than a Star Wars fan. But I've seen this before in the Star Trek universe, and that had to do with the doggone Klingons. The Klingons are about honor and responsibility and banding together to save the Empire and do the right thing and all that stuff, except they were backstabbing all the time. There was not a sympathetic character in any of it. I hated Klingon episodes because they're so annoying in so many ways. And to a certain degree, I'm getting that on this new series of film with these characters. They're fascinating, they're interesting, but would I want to go have a beer with them? Maybe if my back is against the wall, I don't know. the characters are not as interesting in the sense that taking the harder decision, which is being the good guy. So I don't know. I can see where the plot deficiencies are, but I can also see how Ron Howard was able to take and pull these things off in a very interesting way. And you can take a terrible script and turn it into something much better. And I think as a Star Wars movie goes, as far as the action and the overall pace of the thing, it went very well. So I'm okay with that. So my opinion is I'm conflicted. I'm a bit conflicted by the characterizations and how they worked out, but I also love the way they were treated as characters individually. That was fun. Maybe that's where that's coming from. This is KE5ICX. I'll go ahead and ask if there's any additional check-ins. Over on Echolink, I'll also give you extra time. Anyone who would like to check in and talk about Solo, a Star Wars story, please come now.
KG5Z Lima Mike, Kilo 5Z Lima Mike. This is Hector in Fort Worth checking in. I did see the movie.
Excellent. KG-LM, Hector over in Fort Worth. I kind of figured you had some comments because you've been in on other discussions. I'm going to give you a twofer on this one. You can talk about characters. Actually, you can talk about anything you want because we're going to do the next round will be the final round. So if you'd like to talk about things we've discussed is the story. We've talked about characterization, but I'll let you also make any comments about anything about the film that impressed, depressed, or oppressed, or suppressed, or impressed you about Solo, a Star Wars story. Go ahead, Hector. You've got the floor.
Well, I guess I went with low expectations in the movie, I guess, based on what I was reading and the fact that they changed directors and that they were playing him with the actor that played Han wasn't doing too good. I went with really low expectations, but I was surprised. I actually liked the movie. It was better than I thought it would be. I didn't think it was that bad. It was okay. It was better than episode 1, 2, and 3, but it wasn't. Maybe not as good as episode 3, but it wasn't as good as the originals. But it was entertaining. It was good. The only thing I had a problem with, well, I had several problems, but the one I'll just talk about today is this is a civilization or a time period where they travel at the speed of light, but somehow they still send expensive resources on trains. That didn't make sense to me. That just seemed like a lazy writing where they thought, well, what would make a good scene and what would make good CGI? Let's throw a futuristic train in there. But to me, if this civilization has spaceships that travel at the speed of light, why would they ever send anything on something like a train? It just didn't make sense. And that's, I guess, some of the issues with the remakes I have is that they just have lazy writing and they don't come up with the original stuff that would happen in this universe. I would have much rather seen them trying to smuggle something. They didn't really smuggle anything until the end, but that's kind of what Han Solo was. He was a smuggler, and I would have liked, instead of them trying to steal a train or hijack a train, if they would have gone on a smuggling run or something like that. But I love the way it started. I love the way the Empire was colonizing different worlds, and Han Solo. I thought that was interesting. I wish they would have stayed a little bit more on that and shown some more of those battles and a new civilization that they were fighting. But I kind of like that premise. But overall, I liked the movie. Other than that, I thought it was lazy writing that they had a train in there. Anyways, this is KG5 Zulu Lima Mike. Back to net.
Very good. Thanks, Hector. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. I had an aversion to the whole train thing myself. The Great Train Robbery, it seems kind of primitive, and it was fun to watch, but none of that made any sense to me either. All right, this is KE5ICX, and I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. It is 10 minutes to midnight. So anyone who has any comments of any sort, please come now. I know the Echolink folks get short shrift, so if you want to go ahead and put in the text box you got comments or voice, either way is fine with me. Everybody else, just throw out your call sign. Anything you'd like to say about this film, please come now.
Inside BB.
W5EBB.
KF5PSK.
05 Juliet Delta Whiskey.
And in this round, I've got N5BB, W5EBB, K5TSK, K5JDW. Anyone else?
V5OZL.
I got WB50ZL. Let me go to the top. N5BB, Mr. Bill, go ahead.
I agree with this N5BB. I agree with the comment somebody made earlier, maybe David, maybe somebody else, that some parts of the movie wasted a lot of time. The Kessel Run thing, which I'm sure used a few of those thousands, I don't know if there were thousands that looked like it, CGI people, huge number of CGI things. But all that Kessel Run stuff wasted a huge amount of time. And I don't really see the value to the plot in wasting all that time. Another thing, which of course has been made by many people, commented by many people, is that parsecs is a distance measurement. So he made it in less than 12 parsecs rounded down or something. Well, that's not a time measure, it's a distance measure. And in the movie, they kind of explained that. They were able to make it a shorter run by using the robot and her knowledge. The other place they wasted, I think, time is all the stuff with the stealing from the train. That was also a huge amount of CGI and everything. And quite a bit unbelievable, all that. And I wish they'd spent some more time on developing the characters. They could have spent some more time with, developing Han Solo's character and Chewbacca and some other people. But they didn't. They wasted it in all the action. Now, I realize it's a Star Wars movie, and people want all the action, but I don't know. I thought this was a side thing that was supposed to be developing characterization and history rather than just an action-packed thing. My guess is Ron Howard got dumped this on him, and they'd already spent all that money, and all he could do is just kind of tie it together at the end. Inside BB. Oh, I liked it, by the way. Inside BB.
Hey, Bill. Well, I think you summed it up. It had a lot of problems, but you still liked it. I agree with you. All right. Let's see. Next up is David, W5EBB. Your comments.
Okay, I got a lot of stuff, but I'm looking at the time, so I'll read quick. By the way, I think Ron Howard actually reshot 70% of the scenes that the previous cinematographers and directors had done. So he kind of made it his own film pretty much, I think. Let's see. Oh, something else about characters. Tom, you mentioned that Dryden Voss was like a James Bond character, and I just looked up some of the villains. Hugo Drax, Ernst Blofeld, Sigmund Stromberg. Yeah, even the name fits. And I didn't mention anything about the Han Solo character, Alden Ehrenreich. If George Lucas were portraying Lloyd Benson, he would have probably said, I know Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford is a friend of mine. And Alden Ehrenreich, you're no Harrison Ford. But those are some really difficult shoes to walk into, and I think, Alden, on the whole, did a good job. A good job. Special effects, very good. Expansive landscapes, realistic. Maybe the IMAX helped a little bit. But the thing I really liked was the full power of ILM's software algorithms for kinematics, motion, and mechanical modeling. Their software algorithms were put to the test, and they did really well. The side-slipping hovercraft, hot rod, and the double-decker monorails, I think, were modeled very realistically. Now, I don't know if y'all remember, but at the theater for show and tell, I brought this cylindrical silver diamagnetic bismuth tube with a small floating magnet spinning within a cutout in the middle. And ironically, in the movie, we see these small silver vials with coaxium floating within it through a window in the middle of it. All right, here's the moral of the story. Adaptations to situations for survival is human. Fate is fluid. But staying true to your core beliefs and true nature and knowing innately right from wrong, unswayed by predicament or situation, may not be human, but may be divine. W5EBB, back to net.
Thank you, David. Interesting comments. Let's see. K5TSK. Bro, what you got for us?
This is K5TSK. Well, I looked at this great train robbery, and I kept wondering, when was it ever going to end? It's like they spent all of their time and money just on that, one thing. When you look at the whole movie itself, they spent $400 million to make it, and the first week they only brought in $100 million. So, I guess time will tell whether, it makes any money or not. K5TSK, back to net.
All right, thanks. Let's see, K5JDW, John, your comments.
Thank everybody for their comments this evening. This is almost like a Cisco and Ebert program for me. I probably want to watch this program now, or the movie now, after hearing all the comments. I was just curious, about halfway through this program tonight, or net, I don't know how to ask this to everybody, but I was curious everybody's gut reaction on. I'm not, part of the Ron Howard fan club or anything, but I do like some of his work. I'm just curious how people rate this amongst most of his works. K5JW.
Has left the building.
Well, Elvis, nor can Ron Howard has left the building quite yet. Okay, well, we'll ask that question in a bit. We'll probably close this thing out at some point because it's midnight. But anyway, good comment. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda, your comments. Go ahead.
WB5OZL. Yeah, I just kept saying, where is $250 million here? I don't understand why filmmakers, it's kind of a badge of honor to make the most, to waste the most money of any other filmmaker, because you're going to have to make it back or you're not going to work again. I don't know why they didn't try and temper the budget a little bit to bring in, get the cost down a little, because it's I don't see that it's ever going to make all that much back. It may come close, but it's definitely not going to be a profitable venture. Ron Howard, Apollo 13 is definitely the best movie he ever made. I don't see the kind of detail in this that I saw in Apollo 13. But, you know, you could argue that all day. That's all I have to say. It's late. I'm tired, so I'll just put this to bed. WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Miss Brenda. And I'll make this comment, and then I'll do one more round, and we're done. If there is anybody who has any comments, yeah, I thought this film it was fun, and somebody actually fingered this one exactly right. Is that it was a fun film. It was a bad script, really, when you get down to it. And there are reasons for it having to do with the characterization, which we talked about, and the storyline as well, which we also talked about. Didn't quite fit in, and Ron Howard was able to kind of pull it together and made it a successful film, although people aren't rushing out to see it. So it's very convoluted in the sense that only 5 months ago there was another Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi. So you got to ask yourself, well, if Star Wars movies come out every 3 years, and you have one that comes out just 5 months after the last one, is there a rush to go see it? And the answer is no. And then when you hear the comments, well, is it really worth rushing out to see? For all of us, it was. We wanted to see it. But apparently, as a popular film, it's not. So we'll see what happens. Maybe over the few coming days we'll know more. I don't know. We live in funny times. Any last comments? Please come now.
KF5 PDS with a comment.
PDS, Miss Billy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one last comment to put this whole Kessel Run business to bed. Han Solo never said that he was boasting about the speed of his ship. He was boasting about finding a shorter route. So if you read about the Kessel Run, most ships would follow a path that was 20 parsecs long. So they would do it in a distance of 20 parsecs. Because Han Solo used the L3 database information in the Nava computer, he was able to navigate through the Maw and use a little bit of hyperspace to do it in a shorter route. So he just found a shortcut, basically. So instead of doing a route that was 20 parsecs long, he did a route that was about 12 parsecs long. And I love that Chewie kind of ribbed him about that, saying, well, it was really a little bit longer. And he's like, not if you round down, you know. So I love it that Chewie and Han kind of had that brotherly ribbing going on. So you could tell that they're kind of, you know, cosmic brothers in a way, you know, but I just love how Chewie kind of points out to him, it's like it was really a little bit longer than that, and he was like, well, not if you round down. So I thought that was funny, but Han never said that it was a measurement of time, so I think that's our own thinking, is when we think about going somewhere and doing something, we think about doing it in a shorter time, so I think that was the audience's assumption, and then surmising that he made a mistake, but he didn't, and because he wasn't talking about the speed, he was talking about how long the route was, and he did it in a shorter distance. So I just wanted to just make one final comment about that. So And I thought they did that good. It was a little bit long, but I thought they did that well in the film to show how he navigated that in order to get it done in a shorter route. It's because he used a little bit of hyperspace and cut through the maw, and just it shortened the distance of the route. So with that, I will return it to you. I can't wait to hear what we're going to do next week. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
W5EBB. We really need to move this to a debate hall where this discussion of the Kessel Run can be thoroughly discussed. Okay, but in A New Hope, okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi says, if it's a fast ship, and Han says, fast ship, it's the one that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. So he's talking about speed. Or maybe that's just his salesmanship, and he really knows his distance, but he's just talking like it's speed just to get the job. Who knows? W5EBB.
Oh no, we're going down this rabbit hole, or the wormhole, or the black hole. I don't know, maybe all of the above. All right, I'm gonna call it for this evening. I've enjoyed the conversation. I don't know how many people checked in. A bunch. Enough. Let's see. Write this down. You'll need to know this for this week's homework. We're gonna watch The Time Machine. You're thinking, yay, what a great movie. No, you're not seeing that one. You're seeing the 1978 remake, the TV, made-for-TV version. Aren't you excited? I knew you would be. Go to the Facebook page, if you'd like, which is Afterglow Movie, that's 2 words, and you can and sign up if you haven't already. I think just about everybody has. You can find it there. Yes, you can find it there and watch that fine film. Or if you're not a Facebook fan, and who is these days, you can go ahead and send me an email. That's Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX @yahoo.com or gmail.com if you'd like. Either one's fine. Yahoo.com is the one I pay the most attention to. And say you would like to be added to the list. We'll put you in there, and then I will send you somewhere between Sunday and Wednesday the movie of the week that you should be watching. So, The Time Machine from 1978, it is online. You can see it there, the entire 90 minutes of wonderfulness. Okay, I'm going to close it out at this point, unless anybody has any additional comments. Well, no, I'm just going to close it out. You can have comments afterwards. This is KE5ICX. I'll go and clear now. 7-3, everybody. Have a good evening.
W5FC.
Net gang, it almost reminds me of the joke, where everybody in the United States talks about how many miles it is from one place to another. And in Texas, they talk about distance in hours. K5 JDW.